Welcome to the podcast, Neal.
Thank you, Kris.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Fellow storyteller guru and just an overall delight of a human being. Neal, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, like you, I came from the propaganda business. I spent 30 plus years trying to create persuasive messages on behalf of brands and trying to create experiences when I was in the experiential marketing part of that. And over the course of that long career, I discovered that maybe the most excuse me, maybe the most cool tool that you walk away with is a sense of how to be persuasive as a person. And if I could offer you any one of four superpowers, for example, super strength, or the power of invisibility, or the ability to jump into the air and fly as fast as a jet, or I gave you the ability to change people's minds, that's the one that is the most powerful. Because with the ability to change people's minds, you can get anything you want. Anything that you could get by super strength, you can easily get by persuasiveness. It's since the invention of language, the ability to change people's minds has been the most potent and powerful way to take advantage. I'm so sorry. I made the mistake of eating an almond before we went on. And now it has decided to establish base camp somewhere right about here.
It's resurrected.
Yeah. Anyway, but to complete the picture, so it wasn't so much learning to be persuasive by crafting persuasive messages for clients. It was in the act of trying to sell the ideas to the clients. That's when you really found out whether you had any chops as a, as a Svengali, as the ability to sell someone something. And as you would know only too well, Kris, you can't persuade somebody to buy something when they don't want to buy it. If they don't want to buy it, any excuse will do. If they want to buy it, any reason will suffice. So the art of persuasion, and this goes right back to Dale Carnegie, 1933, I think. The art of persuasion has everything to do with trying to make people feel good about you. And, that's why I put this above my desk. Life is a team sport. That the more you see each other as friends and colleagues and not competitors, the more that you see your fellow human being as somebody who's experiencing the same thing you're experiencing at the same time, and that you should have empathy and compassion for them, not fear and distrust. The more you do that, the more you will capitalize on what makes us powerful as a species. Cooperation. Cooperation is where we get our power. Just imagine, Kris, I want you to, you and I are caveman and cavewoman on the African plain hundreds of thousands of years ago. And we are being approached by hyenas or a pride of lions. Now, who do you think is more frightened? Us of the hyenas or 50 human beings with sharp sticks? We are far more dangerous than they are because we can communicate. And, by the way, I am told that human beings smelled terrible, that was part of our survival strategy. Was our body odor was repulsive to animals. Anyway, whether there's truth, I return to my original proposition, which is our ability to cooperate is what made us survive.
Right.
And without nails and without long teeth, we nevertheless made it out the other end. And it's because of our superpower, language and cooperation.
So it sounds like,
my background.
Neal, you have a really rich background with Fortune 500 companies like Budweiser and Lexus and Toyota. So, you were really in the game working with some big names and using your ability to persuade and tell stories and get people on board with your creative. Is that right?
That's to be immodest. That was my strength. I wasn't a particularly genius creative person. I was a copywriter, and I wasn't better at it than everybody else, but I enjoyed the company of clients. And I had one quality that I think was incredibly valuable when it came to persuasion, which was for the most part, I was a good listener. So it was rare when I was working at cross purposes with my clients. And as you can imagine, the most important thing about a client is that they pay your bills. And the more they enjoy your company and the more they like you and the more they trust you, the more likely they are to pay those bills. So, that was my chief asset in the business, was that I could go into a room of clients and be a good listener and deliver on what they were hoping for.
And so after decades of that type of work, what I get a feel from you is that you've gone so deep into this work that it's almost become kind of spiritual to you.
Well, that's an interesting way of putting that. I will agree with you in this sense that people operate out of too much fear and too much anxiety, and they needn't. But we're being inundated by algorithms and forces that incentivize dividing us up and making us afraid. These people are out to get you. Those ones are stealing from you. They have no right to take your rightful place. I mean, this kind of
Right.
awful drumbeat of negativity
Yeah.
and division. That is the dark side. That's the dark energy of persuasion. That's using repetitive lies and pessimism in order to rivet people's attention, because attention is worth money.
Right.
The light version, the version I'm trying to pursue, is to persuade people that there is an ROI to kindness and togetherness and cooperation that dwarfs the return on division.
Mm.
That when you are good to people and you are a trustworthy person, and instead of going out into the marketplace and saying, what's in it for me, rather saying, I think I can help you, and even better, I think we can help each other.
Mm.
And I'll give you some really solid examples of that at work. But I'm preaching that evangel because I'm at the stage in my career when I don't think I'm not going to be starting a new startup, that goes unicorn on anybody. I just want to leave the commons better than I found it. And so, if you will, I'm sort of vacuuming up around myself right now for all of the sins and mistakes I made in the past, to try to increase people's faith that being good to each other in business is more profitable. I'll give you a couple of really solid examples, and I'll start in a very, counterintuitive world of car dealers. And as you can imagine, as all businesses are on a spectrum of, at this end are the absolute rapacious Huns, and then at the other end are the sweet people who are only in the business to make life easier for people. The most profitable and most powerful dealer I ever saw was a guy whose hallmark was generosity and trust. And he used to have a kind of unofficial slogan, which was, I'll lose a little money to make a friend. And a good example of how he would do that was he would give his service writers, who were, as soon as you drove in for car service, they would write you up, like, what do you need and so forth. And he would say, listen, Jim, if some elder gal comes in and she doesn't look like she's made of money and she's in there for anything less that costs less than $200, just give it to her. Don't charge her. And don't tell her it's from me. And don't tell her it's the policy of the store. We'll never stop getting people with their hands out. Just tell her it's from you because you like her. And, Mrs. Hodgson Curtis, it's nice to see you again. Don't worry about it. That's no charge, because I want her to drive away thinking, I've got a guy in the car business. And here's what's going to happen, just between you and me on the fence post. She's going to go home to the tennis club or the bridge club or just her friends, and she's never going to shut up about it. And so that's already, it has paid for itself in word of mouth. But if she has a son or a daughter, I'm probably going to sell them 11 cars. So as much as, I like being sweet to old people, I happen to know we're going to make a lot of money off this gesture. He would do another thing, which was very clever, which was he was doing business near the New Jersey Turnpike. And on the Turnpike in spring, when all of the road salt and all of the debris and everything that they've been putting down to, for traction, that starts to come up and hit people's windshields. Everybody is driving around on the Turnpike with a crack in their windshield. So what does he do? Every single car that parked in his parking lot, he would send people out with a little hypodermic needle to put the adhesive in the crack so it wouldn't get any bigger. And he wouldn't tell anyone. He wouldn't ask permission. He wouldn't charge, and he wouldn't tell anyone. And he said that the logic behind it was he wanted it to be a kind of urban myth. He wanted the word to spread like, oh yeah, if you go down there, it'll fix, somehow you're going to drive out, your windshield's fixed. And it did what he said it would do, which is it became, people would show up, to cheat the system. They would show up just to get their windshield fixed. It would get fixed and they would drive away. And they're thinking, oh, I cheated the system. No, you didn't, bro. You just increased the footprint of this myth, which it wasn't a myth at all. Right. But these gestures of kindness and, generosity turned out to be vastly disproportionate in return to his reputation, to the number of reliable and loyal service customers he had, to the number of repeat buyers. There is a kind of perverse thing about buying a car, which is the dealers actually, once the price of a car is well known, they actually don't make that much money off them. They'll make about $500, $600 off it, but that's not enough to keep the operation running. They really do make their money off repeat purchases and service. And therefore, what you really want to do is you want to create sufficient trust and graciousness that people come to you for service. Well, a lot of businesses are that way. They survive on repeat business. And anybody who knows the term CAC, customer acquisition cost, CAC is very expensive. It's very difficult to get your first customer. To get a repeat customer has a CAC of 0. In other words, they've just come back because you've treated them well. So that, in principle, is the preaching I do in the world about business and brands is, let's not make it about price. Let's make it about you over-delivering in such a way that you are perceived as being generous and sweet-natured, trustworthy, and just as loyal to the customers as they are to you. And I'll give you a couple other examples.
These are great.
So I was at LAX. This was not recent. This was a few years back. But, airports, because of the trouble with the TSA and so on, they were having these insane lines. And people not thinking straight, they often take it out. They take out their frustration on like the flight attendants or the desk people. And you want to grab them by the lapel and get very close to them and say, it's not their fault. They don't have anything to do with that. Why are you treating them badly? But people are not rational. Mm-hmm. Well, my friend Marcus and I were down at LAX on one day when Chicago, which was a United hub, LAX is a United hub. So Chicago was having a weather event, and all of a sudden there were a lot of delayed and canceled flights in Los Angeles. Now, it's brilliant sunshine outside, and nobody understands what the hell the problem is. Mm-hmm. We're not having any trouble. Well, bro, everything's a connection from Chicago. Marcus was an improv actor, and he sees these poor women behind the counter are just getting treated like they have a big switch they won't flick. And, why aren't you fixing the weather? So everybody's so irrationally angry with them that you could tell they were just at their wits' end with the human race. They were finished with, people suck is basically what they were thinking. Mm-hmm. The couple just in front of us were this man and woman team, and they were just insufferable. They were awful. They were condescending. They were entitled. Just everything you lament about what we're capable of as a species, especially if they're upper income. They can sometimes really be bad. Well, the woman she's gone 1,000-yard stare. She's been in the trenches long enough that she doesn't even mind the shelling anymore. She doesn't care. We get up to the desk. We're going to check some bags. And before she can say anything, or even I can say anything, Marcus just goes, "Oh man, those two are in big trouble." And he's pointing at the couple sleeping. And she goes, "What?" And he pulls out this little miniature troll doll. I wonder if I have one handy. Because I like to keep, okay, so here's one. So he pulls out this little troll doll.
Yeah.
And it had hot pink hair. And he says, "Bjarki saw the whole thing, and all the trolls know each other, and he's going to tell them what they did. And if you give him his favorite snack before the sun goes down, he will wreak a horrible revenge." And then he pulls out this like bag of M&Ms and he hands them to the woman. And now she doesn't quite know what to make of this lunatic in front of her. But the partner, just to her left goes, "Can we feed him now?" And so here's what happened. What Marcus had done, I don't know if he had this in mind or not. He was just being playful. He was just being ridiculous. Mm-hmm. But the psychological reaction, if you think about it, was profound, because what he did was he shocked her enough to where she was no longer even thinking about these two. The two that are left. They were no longer on her radar. He had wiped the whiteboard clean, and now all she was thinking about was this lunatic in front of her, but he's a friendly, lovable lunatic. And is he really like Danish or what the heck? No, he's just, right? Okay, the whole M&Ms and everything. And the partner now we know that what happened then was that they opened the bag of M&Ms, they put the troll behind the counter, where nobody else could see it, but they could see it. And you knew that the accumulated M&Ms the pile was getting bigger and bigger, whereas with every douche nozzle that came in to be mean to them, they just kept feeding it, and they would laugh. And so behind the counter, there's a kind of perverse pleasure they're getting out of everybody that treats them bad. They're reacting differently. They're going, "Oh, that's one more for Bjarki, the revenge troll." Okay, so now let's go back to the principle of return on investment. So what was Marcus's ROI? Well, the troll was about 66 cents, and the bag of M&Ms was probably about $1.20. But when we got to the gate, most people don't know that the people at the gate were the same ones taking your luggage down below. And they know the whole passenger manifest. And people don't realize how much discretion those people have to affect your flight. And guess who got an upgrade? Yeah. Marcus went up to first class. A $472 value. for a mini troll and a bag of M&Ms. Now, I did not get the upgrade, but I was only too happy to let the universe perform its magic.
Oh, wow.
Because as soon as she said, it was the same woman. She goes, oh, Mr. McCullum, it looks like you've been upgraded. And we all looked at each other like, so anyway,
Oh,
that
man.
to me was a very good example of
Oh,
the
that's so
karma,
good. Yeah.
the karma of making friends and influencing people, old-fashioned Dale Carnegie. So I'll give you my last example. I have many more, but I'll give you the
Yeah. Oh, I am eating these up. Yeah, keep going.
So there's a stand-up comedian. Oh, I wish I could remember his name. I'll figure it out. But stand-up comedian in LA. He's been doing his thing for years and years. He's kind of a journeyman. He's not a headliner, but he some years ago he started doing this thing where he would go out on the street in his car, and he would roll up next to people and roll down his window, and then he would yell things to them that were very unexpectedly funny. So, for example, he would pull up next to a woman in her car and he would say, "Excuse me, do you work for UPS?" And she goes, "No." And he goes, "Really? Because you have the whole package." And then she laughs. And then he pulls up next to these two guys on the street and he goes, "Hey, would you do me a favor and maybe leave some women for the rest of us?" Okay. And so on. And he would just do this, for 2 hours a day. And then he would film it. And then he would post it on YouTube. And he got famous for this. And then he wound up getting, get this, oh my God, Kris, from that thing that he would do, and he would do it all the time. He got 7 million followers.
Oh my gosh.
And you and I both know that's an income.
Yeah.
That's a good income.
Yeah.
So all for probably about 6 or 7 hours a week.
Right. Of fun.
But he enjoys every minute of it. He was doing it just to do it anyway. He loves to make people laugh. He has goofball things like, "Do you work for Google?" "No." "Really? Because you're everything I'm searching for." And then he would pull up next to these women and go, "Does it ever get tiring being that beautiful?" And so on and so on. Just these little things. Now, the ROI is so disproportionate to the effort, all because he's just going out into the world trying to make people smile. Now, even if he encounters the odd duck who feels obnoxious about he is so restored by the general feeling.
Right.
And in business, I don't think there's any quite such pleasure to be taken as offering a service or a product that people realize that it's valuable. Like they really like it. A pair of handmade boots that, you can only get if you wait 4 months for, or I used to do a lot of advertising on behalf of Toyota, and it was a brand I, to this day, believe in ferociously. I was a real partisan for the brand. I had the good fortune to be working as an advertiser on a brand I believed in. How cool is that?
Yeah.
Where you didn't have to tell a single lie and all of the, tell me we're going to.
It matters. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just had I always took such pleasure in anybody asked me like what kind of car they should buy. You were going to have to shut me up because I would, what do you like to drive? You want a minivan? Do you want to do you know this? Do you know the Toyota Sienna is absolutely the best minivan? And do you want a sedan? How about a sporty? And I knew the whole lineup. I knew 18 cars deep, and I could tell you what the grades differences were. And it really was like somebody knocking on your door to preach the gospel. I mean, I was that obnoxious about it. But the reason I took such pleasure in it, the reason I was so fanatical, was because I could believe in it. I could 100% believe in it. And yes, they made false steps like a lot of car companies do. Nobody has a perfect record when it comes to, repair and so on. But I did notice that when Toyota finally did have to recall the Camry, it was a very famous recall in 2009, they treated the customer so well and they responded so well to the recall that when they took customer surveys after, people were happier with Toyota and their product after the recall than they were before.
Wow.
That's who they were. And to me, that's the ROI of kindness and compassion, and making something so well and treating people the way they ought to be treated, to the point where, like me, you lock them in with a lifetime loyalty that won't tolerate a bad word being spoken about them in your company. And you'll see this again and again when it's small town restaurants and non-big banks. And
right. Yep.
That you'll notice that there is a deep, deep satisfaction had by the people that work there. A pride that they don't necessarily have to brag about. They don't go on social media, but they wake up in the morning glad that of all the places they could work, at least it's for some place that I enjoy, or, I like. You could truly like your customers. You can love them. And just by doing your service, you can demonstrate that affection.
It's a very different way to approach service. Have you read the book Unreasonable Hospitality?
Oh, have I ever? Yeah.
Yeah,
And there's, oh my God, is it, what is the name of the author? It's not Danny Meyer. It's the
I
other guy.
know. I'm blanking on it right now too.
Well, anyway, he's quite
Yeah,
famous for the hot
very.
dog thing. Yeah.
Yeah, yep.
So now what he's a really good example of, and Meyer too, is how dedicated they are to their own staffs.
Hmm.
Like how they at their core belief, it's that if I take care of my people, the people will take care of the customers. That I lead by example as much by what I tell them. And they're very thorough and they're detail minded. And all that has to happen is for their own staffs to watch them paying attention to the details, to realize, oh, he'll change a tablecloth just like anyone else if he needs to. It's very, very team spirited.
Mm,
There's a there's a there's a positivity to that can do, everybody chips in kind of
hmm,
thing. There's a positivity to it that you can't help but enjoy being around.
hmm.
That that feeling like we're all going to make it. This is going to work. And, we will, whether we are number one at the end of the year or not, I can tell you that we're going to make a run for it because we love what we do to the point where it's not work anymore. It's, actors work very hard,
Hmm.
but when they're performing, they don't think of it as work, do they?
Hmm.
Any more than Alyssa Liu when she was winning her gold medal in the Olympics. Her nerves were a very different animal from the nerves of the other competitors. It just wasn't the same experience. And
Hmm.
you could feel it and see it, that when an artist or musician is performing their art like a great waiter or a wonderful mechanic, they are in it. They like what they do to the point where,
It's a creative expression, is what it
yeah,
is.
in
Yeah.
the movie Man on Fire, there's this wonderful line where they say, they're talking about this assassin, and he says, anybody can be an artist if what they do with enough passion. Food, what have
Right.
you. Everybody can be an artist. Well, Creasy's art is death, and he's about to paint his masterpiece.
Hmm.
And it's true of anything. If you are a stockbroker or you are an accountant, there is an art form to it. I've known enough CFOs to know that there is a lot of art to what they do.
Oh yeah. I'm actually working with a client right now. I was just working on it before our call. He's a mortgage broker,
Yeah.
and he is a very creative person outside of that. He's a guitar player, a musician, but he brings a creativity and a masterfulness to that field that is unexpected and really cool. And there's all kinds of, even with story, there's stories that are formulaic. Fundamentally, they're formulaic, but within the formula, there's limitless creativity that can happen.
Yeah, like music. But
Yeah.
I do have to say that, a mortgage broker in particular, their whole orientation is they are trying to make something happen. They're trying to help you make this happen. So yeah, their creativity is really a good component. To go back to storytelling for a minute, which is both our that's our purview. The the thing that I the evangel that I preach when it comes to that is the stories you tell reflect who you are more than the way you tell it. It's what you choose to tell. That's where
Mm.
it signals what your priorities are and who you care about and so forth. And I saw a really good example of this in two different versions of why people should return to office. Now,
Mm.
you know that for a variety of reasons, a lot of CEOs are saying, well, let's get our people back into the office, like 5 days a week. And after people have experienced work from home and remote work and all of the various and sundry benefits that go to that, they're a little reluctant to give up those rights and privileges, especially since, given that they've now eliminated their commute, they can actually spend more time working on the projects and so forth.
Right.
Nevertheless, there are different ways to entice people to come back into the office. And one of the better versions of that I saw was from a very avuncular, I love that word avuncular, which is like a pleasant uncle, a very avuncular senior executive said, we are returning to the office, a great number of us. I'm not going to tell you to come back into the office, and I'm not going to disincentivize, your work from home. What I am going to tell you is something that is true, and that I experienced when I was a lot younger than I am now. When I was early in my career, I got the benefit of having a mentor. And it was, when you look at the sweep of my career, it was priceless to get the guidance and counsel of somebody who was watching over me like a father figure and helping me not repeat my mistakes and giving me some of the inside scoop on who the players were. And it was very much like he was a little bit like a drone is now, going forward to tell you what the terrain is going to be like. Yep. And I will tell you that my mentor had nothing to do with the official reporting schedule. He was nowhere remotely near my reporting structure. So it was happenstance that this guy took me under his wing. And it benefited me both economically, spiritually, and in terms of my growth as an individual. Now, I can't tell you that I will be your mentor, but I will tell you this, that I'm at the stage where, and I see it around on a lot of the senior guys, they just have a compulsion to help younger people. It's just something that happens to you when you get older. You want to be helpful to young people because you like young people. And so, for better or worse, if you don't come back in the office, you're missing out on an opportunity to get basically a graduate degree you don't pay for. Now, I heard that and I thought, I'm just paraphrasing. He actually did a more elegant version of it.
Yeah.
But you can see that what he's chosen to do is not make it, a sanitized, clever way of saying everybody's expected back in the office, or you're going to get, you're going to get spanked. It was come back into the office or don't, your discretion. But I will tell you that there are benefits that accrue to those that return. And it was packaged in such a human way that everybody could see the truth of it. That they go, yeah, I kind of had a feeling, when you're around the boss and you're visible to the boss, the next time bonuses happen or the next time layoffs happen, that currency is valuable. It's not dollars, but it might as well be. This is what I mean by the story you tell, what you say, not just how you say it, is to me the more value of the two things. So when you and I are talking about storytelling, I think it becomes really important that people go, all right, what is the appropriate story to tell here? One of the things, for example, that one of the counsels that I gave was to my nephews who were going to do speeches at a wedding. And so I did on my website, I did this talk on, giving a good toast. And the first thing I said to them was, okay, let's keep in mind what a toast is at a wedding. A toast is very different at a business dinner than it is at a wedding. And I want you to understand this right down into the double helix of your DNA. Do you understand me? Now, listen, this wedding is not about you. Okay? It's about the young couple. You are not the main character in this play. You're not even the main character in your speech. You are a supporting cast member whose job is to make the young couple feel good about their decision. And as an extra bonus, if you can make the parents feel good because you're the type of friend that they have, they think, what an admirable young person, then you score bonus points because you weren't selfish. You didn't roast anybody. You didn't say anything stupid. You kept your language clean. Then you will have scored a 10 out of 10 by not being the main character. Do you read me? They're both like, got it. Every story is based on context. Where am I telling this? What do they want from it? And unfortunately, I have seen very, very funny speeches at weddings where it's like, yeah, but it was about you and you didn't do yourself any favors here. Because you tell me, does anybody have a right to outshine the bride at a wedding? Answer, no. Don't go there.
Right.
So likewise, in business, negotiations, whether you are trying to encourage people to come back in the office or you're confronting a very difficult decision about, are we going to lay off this many people or are we going to share the pain and stick together? I'm going to make the decision, but I want to hear your ideas. That's a story. Just that simple gesture is a story. Why? Because what the story I'm telling is this is the kind of person I am. And I want to know whether or not this is the right thing to do. I don't know what you've experienced in your personal experience, but in my personal experience in small companies that could either lay off people or stick together and win it, and reduce salaries, probably 7 out of 10 times they choose shared pain. Yeah. And ironically enough, I think they emerge from that much, much stronger than people that laid them off. You know,
Oh,
when a
yeah.
boss needs when a boss needs you to stay, when a boss asks you to, do
Yeah.
something that they stay.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you feel needed, you feel wanted, you feel like, you contribute something to the group that really matters. And yeah.
That ability to make somebody feel as though they matter may be one of the most important skills
Yeah.
of a boss. There's a wonderful case of Jose Mourinho. He was the manager coach of the it was a English Premier League soccer team,
Hmm.
and Tottenham Hotspurs. So he was the manager of the Tottenham team, and they were in a game with Olympiacos, and there was just you know how it is in soccer. Like a game can be 1-0. Like that's the entire score.
Right. Right.
That's how it can be. So any advantage you have is enormous. And what happened was one of the ball boys who was recovering a ball and was giving it to the Tottenham player to send back into play, he caught one of the Olympiacos players napping. He saw that he was distracted for a half second. So he rushed the throw in to the Tottenham player, and they beat this guy by 2 steps. And it led to a very simple score. And it was all because the ball boy was paying attention. And Mourinho, who doesn't miss a trick, saw what he'd done, and he comes over and he embraces this kid. And they talked about it in the post-game press conference.
Wow.
One of the reporters asked him, "What was that all about?" And he sang the praises of this ball boy, and very seriously, he goes, "He was a very good ball boy. He's a very good ball boy. He's not thinking about the scarves in the stands. He's not there to watch the spectacle. He's playing the game. He's in the game." And he winds up inviting him
Oh my
to
gosh.
eat with the players
Oh,
because 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 Mourinho understands everybody matters at one point or another. If you're paying attention, even the cleaning crew will save your ass. And this is a spirit of generosity that makes a great leader, somebody who acknowledges you matter here.
mhm.
And even on days when you might think you don't, keep your eyes peeled, and the occasion will rise when you may be the nail in the horse's shoe that saves this whole battle. But there's a generosity. Great leaders are actually quite generous in spirit. Let's go back to the American Revolution. There was a moment at the end of the Revolution when George Washington was being suggested as, look, you already have command of the Continental Army. You could just pretty much be the strong man. Like, why don't we just make you the leader? And Washington gave up his commission, went back to Mount Vernon, surrendered his power. And I don't know if the story is apocryphal or not, but apparently George III, the English king, heard that this is what happened and proclaimed, that man will be remembered as the most important figure of the age for that gesture.
Mm.
That the generosity of giving up
Mhm.
power as part of the birth of the nation will be remembered as the single most important single act by an individual in the formation of the nation.
Mm.
And the tradition was, after that, the peaceful transfer of power was set as the example by George Washington. That's a story. The story he tells is by his actions. Out of like, who can say these things get gilded, over the hundreds of years. They
Yep.
take on a kind of mythic quality that may bear 60% resemblance to the truth. Like, I don't know for a fact that George III ever actually said that, but the important thing was that there's truth in it. When you do these things when you adopt the car dealer's attitude of, I'll lose a little money to make a friend, in the end the profit is compound.
Yeah. Why do you think, I feel like, I mean, I've been telling stories and in integrating storytelling into my work for a very long time, but it feels like it's really caught on and that people are talking about it now more than ever. Why do you think that is?
Well, I there's a variety of different possibilities. I can't put my finger on it. I'll suggest, here's one possibility, that when you look at a meme stock is 99% story. It is defying gravity in the traditional market sense. Why is this stock valued like this? That is so disproportional to the assets and the revenue. This doesn't make sense. No, it doesn't make sense, because what has happened is a story has made people irrational. Now they're supporting that stock for reasons that defy logic. So, given our fixation with money, I think that the storytelling has become the province of the CEO who wants to inflate his stock price by creating a narrative that outpaces the fundamentals. That's
Mm.
that's one hypothesis is
Mhm.
that. Another hypothesis is that when you watch the show Mad Men, the thing that makes Don Draper so powerful is not his, you know, haughty diffidence. It's his ability to walk into a room of Kodak executives and tell that carousel story about
Mhm.
how this is not a slide projector. This is a time machine. And it's one of the most artful examples of how just the interpretation of how you look at something completely changes its place in your life and the value that how much you'll pay for it.
Mm.
Um, and here's another example of how you can just take a simple narrative and all of a sudden it inflates the value of something beyond rationality. So if you buy an ordinary New York Yankees baseball jersey online with the number 3 on it, Babe Ruth's old number, it'll cost you probably about in the order of maybe 120, 160 bucks. What if I told you that was the actual jersey worn by Babe Ruth in the 1933 World Series where he called his shot and they beat the Chicago Cubs? How much would you pay for that jersey now? Well, now you would pay literally $24 million
Uh-huh.
or
Yep.
more.
Yep.
It's because of the story attached to it. It's the actual jersey. It was there.
Right.
Right? And only one jersey gets to tell that story.
Right.
It's the same as like, well, why would anybody pay? I can get a very, very fine reproduction of the Van Gogh Sunflowers painting by a beautiful frame for $500. Or I can literally pay $180 million. If I can even get it to go up for sale, I will
Right.
pay minimum $180 million for it. Why? Why? Because it's the real one. And this is the thing about a story is you don't just get a painting. You get the entire Van Gogh uh, legend. You own a singular asset from an artist whose story is fantastic. And this is how it is with a lot of things. That limited supply just means that means it's it is defined by like limited supply usually means it's done by an artisan or something like that. Like there's a fantastic brand of homemade boot that apparently some guy in Idaho or something makes, and the Germans send him his special leather and whatnot. And it takes you 4 months just to go in there to get your sizes taken. And then it's going to take probably about a year and a half to actually get the boots.
Wow.
But people will pay unbelievable amounts of money for them because of that lore that goes with it.
Right.
And so if I think of, let's go to like what a CEO's life is like. CEO's life is, he has operational considerations and he has very professional people reporting to him, and he has to hold their feet to the fire on reaching certain targets. And he has to be realistic enough about the targets to make sure that they're achievable so that nobody gets burnt out from, just this constant drumbeat of more, more, more. And on top of that, he has that same more, that's in the other ear from investors and, private equity trying to grind him constantly with pressure about there's never enough. There's never enough. You can have the best quarter the company's ever had. And next month, if you only do 1% better, you're an idiot. So a CEO's life very much is about storytelling.
Mm.
It's if you're not practicing the art, you better start getting good at it, because you can take just the way you answer questions on an earnings call can make you sound confident and self-assured and knowledgeable, or it can make you sound prevaricating and tentative and cautious or incompetent. And you've got to get in your mind, what is the narrative I'm here to tell today? Even if it's bad news, if spun the proper way, it can sound good. Now, bad news is not always bad news if you look over the long throw of a CEO's tenure. Bad news, spoken plainly, honestly, with sincerity, and cleanly and clearly, and not panicking. Even if people are upset about the bad news, 7 months from now, they will remember that you were unafraid to tell them the truth. That's a story. There aren't enough like that. The CEOs are quite adept at using euphemisms and buzzwords and cloaking their meaning in sanded terminology. And the type. It's the button-down collar and then the blue sweater. That's the Silicon Valley CEO uniform. They're casual, just like you. Here, let's go have a coffee together. And they spew this sanitized
Yeah.
chat GPT press release verbiage. The
Oh.
best Q&A I ever saw. Oh, you would have loved it, Kris. We did this real song and dance on behalf of a very, very large client. We were trying to win their business for a multi-million-dollar installation. The president of the company was whip smart and he was very affable. But after doing this big, colorful, loud, brilliant dog and pony show, he was skeptical that we could get everything done by the deadline that was hard. It was a hard deadline. You could not violate this timetable. So he wanted to know, if I'm going to do apples to apples against the other people whose ideas I've seen, I need to know how much of this I'm comparing. And our chief of operations, the guy who was in charge of building the whole stuff, everything, he hadn't said a word the entire meeting. We all had these little microphones in front of us because it was a big panel. Mm-hmm. And finally, the president says, he turns to this guy and he says, how much of what they've shown me today can you actually finish by opening day? And without a beat, this guy just leans into the microphone and goes, 100%. Like that. And so that was not two words. That was one word, 100%. 100 is spelled H-U-N-N.
All lowercase.
Right.
Yeah.
100%. Now, that was the official response. But here's what the text actually reads. It's like, brother, I wouldn't let them show you anything I couldn't build. They may be the ones talking, but believe it when I tell you, I'm in charge here. Nobody makes a move unless I say it's okay, because I'm the one who has to answer for it in the end. And I have seen these things come to grief, and I will not live through that again. Like, it said all that in that one answer. Now, why did it say all that? Because he didn't hesitate. He didn't prevaricate. It wasn't sanded. There was no disclaimer. It was 100% belief from somebody who was going to have to live with that promise. Right. And so he told a story in one word. And the reason it so echoes in my memory is because it's so rare to hear an answer like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And you don't question it, right? It's got the weight of the truth.
What are you going to say? You're sure?
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean? Am I sure? By the way, that guy who gave that answer, he was a former underwater welder. So this guy was a no nonsense.
Under pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I risk my life doing this job kind of a guy. So he was a serious hombre.
Oh my gosh. You are full of so much wisdom. A lot of the people listening to us today are coaches, consultants, solopreneurs. They're great at what they do. They have a heart to help their clients. I'm curious, what kind of wisdom or guidance can you share from all your experience around storytelling, business, you name it, any direction you want to go?
Yeah, I'll stick to storytelling. So here is the one thing that most people underestimate. And if you do this properly, the dividends are abundant. Most people do not rehearse enough when they're going to make a sales pitch, or they're going to make a presentation, or they're going to be on a panel discussion. They do not prepare adequately. And when you are I'll give you an example. If I'm going to tell a 2-minute story, I will rehearse that literally dozens of times. I will do it over and over and over into a camera so that I can watch myself back on how it sounds. And generally speaking, it'll take me about 31 takes to get facile with it. So like, I know the rhythmic sweep of it. It doesn't mean I've memorized it, right? But I know how to say this.
You're fluent with it, but
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I know the rhythm of it, and I'll feel good telling it. But most people will not sit still and do it 30 times in a row. They just won't. The great actors will. The great actors, that's just part of their process, and they don't shy away from it, and they don't think of it as work. They think it's the process. This is the process. I want to give the best possible performance I can, which means I really need to know these lines. I need to know these lines so deeply. It is as if I have made them up myself. You need to feel it so completely that you saying it seems like it's the first time it's ever been said. And most people, because they're busy, CEOs especially, are very, very busy. But here's the dividend. When you go in there and you nail it, I mean, when it sounds great, that adds 30 IQ points to the way people perceive you.
Right.
They think you are brilliant because you had it just seemed to roll out of you so smoothly. Oh my God, Ron is brilliant. Did you see him do that panel discussion? Remember when they asked him that question? And it was just the most, yeah, he rehearsed it 35 times. He was prepared to do
Right.
the rehearsal. And then on top of that, most people don't, they know roughly what they're going to say, as opposed to writing down exactly what they intend to say, so that their choice of vocabulary is just what they want it to be. They look for instead of saying it was colorful, they'll say it was vibrant. Or they'll say, well, I hadn't thought of, I couldn't remember up to now, but the vividness of your description has restored him to my memory. They have the right words for it that make them seem intelligent.
Yeah.
And so rehearsal it is not a nice to have, it's a must have if you want to be competitive in terms of the way you're perceived about the way you present things. Then another thing that people underestimate is they really should use their phones to record themselves making presentations and watch them back. And I know most people, most people are really uncomfortable with watching themselves on camera. They cringe when they watch it. But, and this is what I teach all my people, you've got to get over that. Get over it. Watch yourself anyway. And don't stop watching as soon as it makes you uncomfortable. Watch the whole thing. I want to see you, because you need to know how you're coming off.
Right.
You need to tune yourself up. You need to get better. This is like throwing a baseball around. You got to practice your backhand, man. You got to practice. And you got to watch yourself on camera doing a backhand. And then you go, oh, is that what I look like? Oh God. So we are gifted with this device. It gives you the ability, very simply, to record yourself doing it and then watch it back. And there's another dividend to rehearsing on camera. And here it is. And it's not insignificant. When you get used to recording yourself on camera, you get good on camera. You get good on camera. That's fantastic, as you would know, right?
Yeah.
Video,
I can relate to that. Yeah.
video is the canvas that we practice our art on now.
Right.
That it is, if you can get good on video and you can do good presentations on video, you can pre-record your presentations. And all they have to do is they don't even have to cut to you. They just go, let's play Kris's thing. And it's letter perfect. Well, of course it is. But, everybody's got a personal brand. And, all of us have a variety, spectrum of skills. Some people are super organized. Some people have incredibly high energy. And some people are really, really good on camera. And that being good on camera, man, it's 2026. There is always a place for that. There's one of the jobs that I used to do years ago was a job nobody else wanted to do, but I loved it. It was, Toyota has a very, very large dealer network across the country. And somebody had to go out and interact with all the dealers to present them with the campaigns and ask them for their money on certain campaigns. You had to go out and you interact with boards of dealers. And these are hard charging entrepreneurs who are quite unaccustomed to having to listen to nonsense and who are very, very quick decision makers. And they're a tough audience. They're deeply suspicious, and they don't want some flashy ad guy to come in there and think they're going to bamboozle them. It's like, bro, do you know who you're talking to? We're professionals here. You're not going to trick anybody.
Right.
That was a great lesson, is so you don't try. You don't even try. But through that crucible, it does teach you that being sincere and authentic is your best weapon in a tough room. But rehearsal is the way to get there. It's paradoxical. The more you prepare, the less rehearsed you look.
Right.
The more authentic you actually become, because now you know what you're going to say now, so you're comfortable being yourself again. You're not worried about what to do with your hands and stuff.
Totally. Yeah. It's like within the delivery, you can be a little bit nuanced and creative and play a little bit within it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're going to enjoy it.
Yeah.
Enjoy it. So if we go back to like the wedding toast. Now, remember, it's not about you. It's about these two young people who are making a big step here, and you need to reassure them that they're doing the right thing.
Right.
And always remember, they are the stars of the show. So your job is to be supportive and reassuring and so forth. Now, nobody really cares how good a presenter you are, how good a speaker you are. All they care about is what's in your heart. But then again, that is all the more reason why you should rehearse. Because only when you truly get comfortable with it, as you were saying, it was play, but this is also, it's your heart coming out because you're comfortable enough that escapes instead of your nerves. So that was the one thing I want to leave your people with is they are, no matter who it is, trust me, they are underestimating how much time they need to spend getting ready for a public appearance.
Mm, thank you. That really is good for me to hear as well. How do you work with your clients?
In a variety of different ways. So I'll do one-on-one coaching, although that's, you can't scale. It gets very time consuming and so forth.
Yep.
Then I'll do small group sessions. I do have to say, I really, really love one-on-one coaching. It's fun to try to help people in their very, very specific needs. Like somebody's trying to overcome an accent, or somebody's got huge stage fright, or they're not sure how they can even apply a story, and so on. I love doing that. But I do find that small groups, 8 people and so forth, it's fun to do that. I just did a coaching clinic with a high school in Minneapolis who are trying to send out the right marketing messages, to they've got a variety of different constituents. I mean, obviously the students, but obviously the students' parents, and then also obviously the people that they have to fundraise with, and then obviously the staff and the
Right.
Well, in each of those cases, what you're trying to do is just stay on your most fundamental values that make you special.
Mm.
And it was great fun to watch them arrive at what they believed those were. It was such a pleasure to watch people who were thinking that, this is about public relations and this is about, word choices and so forth. When it was, no, in the end, it's really about, what do you believe? What do you believe is important?
Mm.
If you could only do one thing for your students, what would you hope it would be?
Mm.
And you would hear just the most marvelous answers. The thing that was most encouraging about that experience was how in line and not coherent,
Congruent.
just how congruent the faculty was with the leadership.
Mm.
Like how everybody really did agree in the end about what made them who they were. And I left that experience going, wow, the young people that come out of this institution are going to lead fulfilling lives.
Mm.
Because they were all about lives of public service. That was what the institution was for. So we want to train young people to live lives of service, to be compassionate and generous and ethical, and even in competitive situations, be honorable and, have the strength of your convictions. And it reminded me of all of the better clients I'd had. I wish everybody could have been there in the room with me, like everybody, because you would have such hope for the future.
Mm-hmm.
You and I both know, and we were talking about this before you started recording, you and I both understand that algorithms and media is being incentivized to divide us and to keep us paranoid and fearful. And they, pummel us with negativity. If you can just get away from it for a while and meet with other people, even people that you possibly disagree with vehemently about something, if you spend enough time with them away from the influence of media, everybody kind of winds up, the waves start to calm and everything goes back to smooth. And if you were in that room, you would see people who recognized that the impact of negativity and media bias and so on, was having on them. And they were determined to be the antidote to that. They were sending young people out in the world to be the antidote to division and negativity. And, it's very hard to face the day unless you go out and seek out chances to restore your soul like that. I think that's why time outdoors is so powerful. The outdoors tends to, it casts sunlight on what is otherwise like a vibrating enclosure.
Where can we find you, Neal? I know everyone listening is going to want to follow you and be connected with you. And so where do we go?
So I'm easy to find if you just know how to spell my name, because I'm the only one in the world who spells my name Neal Foard. And because of that, if you Google me, you'll find me. And you'll find me on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube and everywhere else. But the place I'd really like people to visit is storyfire.net. So www, sometimes you have to put that in, www.storyfire.net. It gets its name from us telling stories around the campfire. So storyfire.net, and how much I wish I had the .com, but I don't. They're holding it ransom, the bastards. So storyfire.net. And the cool thing is, if people go and they visit that site, I have quite a number of videos. If you want to explore the course that I sell there, there are quite a few videos that they can get a sample of sort of what's on offer.
That's great. What a gift. What a gift to be with you today. And
Yeah,
I'm
back at you,
delighted to
Kris.
know you. Yeah.
Likewise.
All right. Thank you.